of good stuff going on right now. As you say, I got the Rams jersey on, and we're definitely in the LA spirit and enjoying what's been going on in the city, even as things have been. We haven't had the most success we would have wanted. As we just saw this last weekend, the Rams and Lions faced off and almost pulled it off with the Lions on the way to hold on. They got their first victory in 30 years, so yeah. Mad or whatever. Let them have their moment this year. Y'all got it, whatever. We'll be back shortly. But in full, definitely was a great game that we thoroughly enjoyed. And sadly, we were on the bad side of it, but definitely a great moment. Alec, any first thoughts on what you saw this last weekend between the Rams and Lions?
Yeah, first thing, you mentioned that it was a great weekend of football. Honestly, it wasn't. It was a lot of blowouts, not a whole lot of good games, but this game was, what did Robert Pelinka say? Manna from heaven or whatever?
We'll get to it later, but I enjoyed the blowouts. So
this game,
they went the right way.
I'll call this game manna from heaven because this was the best game of the weekend by far. It was the most anticipated one, I think, for us as well. So, and for a lot of people, just with the narratives of Stafford coming back to Detroit and Goff kind of getting his revenge against his old team that traded him to Detroit, right. and it played out just as best as we could have hoped, a wire to wire game, and it was really exciting. Could have gone the other way as we expected, but as you mentioned, Detroit was able to hang on in the end there.
Yeah, it definitely was. It definitely hurt that we didn't get the job done. I felt like there were so many chances for us to get there. As you see in the slight breakdown it has on screen there, there's a lot of scoring in the first half, and then adjustments were made on both sides, and neither squad could get in the end zone. It was field goals in the second half, and both were trying to find their way, but it was definitely a cage match of us just trying to do whatever we could. Not able to convert on a few third downs. Obviously, as we said again, not being able to get in the end zone a few times when I thought we could have been there. It definitely hurt us. And it was sad. I was tweeting throughout the game. You just follow us on 6300 on Twitter, just saying we can't. Field goals aren't going to be able to do it. There are a few times where field goals kind of saved us, but we need to get the end zone at some point, at least one more time to get us over the hump, and we're unable to do so. So. Tough way to go out, but again, salute to the Lions for how they pulled off the victory. Also in that, while we are again give praise to the Lions, going back to the Rams, you see it says good season Rams. A lot of good things to still pull away from, even though we did lose. Again, even this game, we talked about it, giving them the keys. Puka Nacua showed out. We're absolutely ballistic, and wanted to make sure we give him full praise. And just who else did you see that stood out in this game and the end of the season that you want to highlight?
We definitely wanted to give Puka his acknowledgement, as you did, for sure. He was the best player on the field to me, between both teams. He was sensational once again, proving that he can be a definitive wide receiver one in this league.
Real quick, we said pass Puka the keys, and folks got mad at us. It seems like you can pass the keys for real, and I think y'all on the same page and see where this is headed. So salute to him for showing he can be a true 1A. Just saying. Go ahead.
Yeah. Cup was a bit quiet, and I think he's still a little banged up from his injuries throughout the season. But I still think Cup can be productive in future seasons. But as you said, no problem giving Puka the keys because he played like he can be a wide receiver one for sure, and had a sensational rookie season all around. Broke a 60-year record in terms of rookie receiving yards and that kind of thing. So he was great. Stafford was sensational, honestly. Like, he could not have played a better game. He was getting mauled out there by the defense at times, but he was hitting every throw, throwing sidearm and out of structure, and he couldn't have asked for a better performance from him. I think he showed that he's still honestly an elite QB in this league too. I feel like he gets forgotten at times just as the older guy too, but and coming off a down year with the shoulder and bad offensive line of the Rams last year. But man, like, he had probably the second, third best quarterback performance after Jordan Love and Stroud this weekend. So he was
real well.
And the defense held up well enough for them to win this game. As you mentioned, I think it was more so just the offense not being able to convert in the red zone and having to settle for field goals. But the defense played well enough to win the game. So salute to them on that end. But,
Yeah, definitely a lot of good things to pull from. And you talk about getting mauled. I hate to bring it up, but we saw that our guy Tyler Higbee went down with the injury
Yeah,
during that game. And you want
yeah.
to just talk about that for a moment, just about I guess guys going low on players when they tackle. You feel a way about that and want to bring it up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate balance because obviously the league with targeting rules has sought to outlaw the high hits and the hits targeting guys in the head area.
Yeah,
But a lot of players and former players have complained about that they'd rather get hit high than get hit low in the legs and knee area. Kirby Joseph, this is the second time he's knocked out a tight end with a
sure,
season-ending injury. I think it's a torn ACL for Higby. I believe it was the same for TJ Hawkinson a few weeks back.
right.
So second time this year, same dude is taking out guys ACLs, and it's clearly a dangerous play. And so I
Correct.
don't know. It's hard because if you're outlawing the low hit, then you're getting a very small window for guys flying at high speeds to try to target where to hit guys. But man, like you hate to see a guy get a 6 to 9 month recovery type injury
Of
off
course.
a play like that. You hate to call it something dirty, but like it kind of feels that way when you see his knee just bend like that. It was nasty on the replay, but there's only so many ways you can kind of hit guys for a defender. So it's a delicate balance there for sure.
Very delicate. They're also talking about eliminating the hip check where guys kind of drop
Hip drop,
along
yeah,
the hip and leads to guys getting rolled over and ankles getting jacked up and things as well. So they're making it very difficult for folks. I'm not going to go and say they're going to flag football and all that kind of extent. Some folks are mad and feel like it's going there, but again, as you said, the window for guys to hit legally without getting like injured in the process is very small. So I got to continue to figure out what's the best way. Then we talked about before, we talked about a long while ago. The reality is on both sides, you said guys rather get hit high. Guys understand what they signed up for in a way. It's kind of hard to say, but the reality is guys put the pads on and are playing football at the game at this level. They understand what they're doing and doing so. I guess the next step was just continue to make sure that both sides are trained. You train guys to hit going through the middle or kind of going a little bit shoulder level or whatever the case is. Then you also have to make sure you train the receivers and guys of that nature to protect their heads as well. Something else I've noticed, and not necessarily calling it out, but as you see, you teach the defenders to keep their heads up. You want them to leave with their shoulders and things of that nature. But there's not a lot of talk about how a lot of times running backs or the runner at the time
they're
will
leading
duck
with
their
their
heads
head.
as well. They
Yeah,
duck their heads. It makes them the same target and leads into the calls that go on as it does. So yeah, there's got to be training on both sides to make sure we keep both sides safe and hopefully continue to adjust that. And sad that Higbee had to go down like that in this last game. Hope he gets well soon. So we'll
yeah.
see how they fix it going forward. And yeah, just got to continue to train these guys up in the right way so we can avoid it going forward.
Yeah, it's tough too because like the head injury, obviously, like concussions seem to put guys out sometimes only a week, a couple weeks, but the long
Right.
term effect can be so severe in terms of CTE and other brain damage long term. Whereas uh, the lower body injuries put you out for several months, but hopefully, like it's not as severe of an effect like for the rest of your life kind of thing, like a head injury
Mhm.
could be. So it's a real like delicate balance for the league to try to like figure out how to manage that.
Yeah, so we'll see how that gets worked out. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. But back to the positive, you said while the Rams did lose, there were a lot of positives to pull from. Now that we're in the offseason or heading into the offseason, and we'll see what is next. Where would you where do we go from here as Rams? Like where does this Rams team go? Do we continue to fall back onto Stafford and some vets that can show that they still have a lot of life left? Or do we start turning the page as we saw, like we mentioned before, Puka and guys of that nature starting to show that they could be the leaders of this squad going forward?
I do think you run it back with Stafford, but I do think they have to look for maybe a late round QB. Like people have talked about, like if the Bo Nix is there, like later in
Hmm.
round, something like that. A guy that's
Hmm.
obviously not going to be your starter next year, or maybe even the year after that, but that you
Sure.
can have like sitting, waiting in the docket to come in when Stafford does eventually retire, because I'm sure he doesn't have that much longer, but he's still playing at a borderline elite level, like I said.
You
So
keep saying that he bounces back. So I think it's more so just having a good backup, just in case he has to sit for a little while. I wouldn't say you need to draft a guy. I think he's earned just the room to say we don't have to go and start banking for the future just yet. We can let him show that he's the short-term future for us still.
I
And
don't know. I
yeah,
feel like that's a little risky not doing it, like not stashing that guy kind of thing.
Just saying that, knowing that there are other pieces as we'll get more into, that other pieces that could be addressed in the draft and of that nature, showing that we can go and get Wentz or last year, who now is playing well this year, Baker Mayfield, who's in the playoffs and stuff. Just making sure there's a good backup. You don't necessarily have to be the guy of the future, because I think Matt Stafford can hold out for a year or two. Maybe next year when the draft comes around, you can more so focus on that if need be. But for right now, just having some good, just having depth, as we talked about during our truths during the season and all of that, making sure there's good depth beyond him, because we don't want him to be out and all of a sudden the team falls apart, as we almost saw before. So I somewhat agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think like the Rams are talented and have shown that they've been talented in their draft scouting process. I mean, being able to identify Puka in the 5th round. Same with Kyron Williams, who is an elite running back as well. So I think for the most part, they have the offense already set. I mean, you can always bolster your offensive line, and I think maybe bringing in another wide receiver potentially, but I think like they're set with Puka and Cup, and if it's Robinson or Atwell in that 3 slot, like they have a good receiving core there, and tight end. I guess we'll see with Higbee's recovery. But defense is where they most need to bolster. I feel we had Kobe Turner playing really well this year, and Aaron Donald getting older. I feel like we haven't heard his name in the like best player in the league type discussions as much this season.
No,
But still an impactful defensive player, no doubt. But bolstering the defense beyond those couple of guys that have been standouts, because that unit has been the weaker unit of the Rams throughout the season. So bolstering the defense would probably be my focus in terms of offseason moves. But yeah, I think they're in a pretty good spot. McVay's talked about this team kind of like lighting his motivation, I guess, again this year. The way they fought.
Not rushing the Amazon bag just yet. Appreciate that.
Exactly. So it's kind of re-energizing him. I think that's great to hear too, because he's still, as we've talked about, one of the better coaches in the league. So as long as we have that like nucleus there, this team has proven that they can compete. It doesn't have to be a tank in order for them to get to the playoffs or rebuild or whatever. So.
Yeah, correct. I definitely agree with that. And to your points about the draft and all of that as well, I co-sign that. That we think we should just bolster that defense, continue to bolster that defense. We saw guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, and we saw Jahmyr Gibbs kind of not fully have their way, but when they need to get to a spot, they're ready to get to a spot. And that we got to find more ways to neutralize that. We also saw Hoyt kind of get targeted a little bit throughout that game too, and that hurt to see. He's a good piece himself, but when he got kind of picked apart at times, and want to make sure he's supported going forward, so we don't get stuck in that situation again. So you're definitely bolstering that. Also, I just kind of saw with the Lions, actually, as much as they have Jahmyr Gibbs and we have our Kyron Williams, they also have David Montgomery. So having some kind of a fire and ice in an arrow kind of way in the backfield. We saw at times that Kyron didn't have quite the best game in the back himself. Having someone that does more of a power back to contrast his finesse definitely could be helpful as well. So we want to continue to build this thing up, and definitely there are some small things we can learn from the Lions who we just faced off with, and we'll see what they pull from it as things go along. But yeah, definitely a lot of fun. We just saw in this last game. We'll talk more about the Lions and what's going to be going on with them versus the playoffs later on. But in regards to what's happening here in LA, a lot of good stuff to keep holding our heads high with, and I'm excited to see where this thing goes next. So, any last thoughts on the Rams?
No, just once again, impressive season. Yeah, hard to be disappointed. It obviously is disappointing to lose in the first round, but great season overall.
Yeah, great season. Looking forward to what's next. And yes, definitely will be supporting. On the flip side, actually, before we go again, make sure for those that are tuning into this part, continue to show love to LA Sports Report. Definitely want to continue to build that up. This clip that you just watched will be on there, and multiple clips discussing things around LA will be flooding there throughout the week. Excited to continue to build that up going forward.